Gunnery Sergeant Ethan Cole gazed at the picture frame on his desk, situated in the dim light of his quarters at Forward Operating Base Vigilance. Inside the 5x7 frame was a glossy photograph of his wife, Chloe, her smile bright as she stood beside their son, Leo, aged 12, and their daughter, Mia, who was 9, in front of their unassuming house in Virginia. The grit of the desert had etched fine lines into the glass, in much the same way that 3 back-to-back tours of duty had eroded his marriage. Ethan traced the image of his wife's face with his rough fingertips. There was a time when her smile was real. He now struggled to recall the last time he had truly heard her laugh. During their video chats, their talks had become briefer, her reasons for cutting them short more common. "Wheels up in 30, Cole!" Master Sergeant Garrett's voice boomed from the doorway. "We just got the intel briefing. This one's a high-value target." Ethan gently tucked the photograph into his rucksack. "On my way, Master Sergeant." At the age of 35, Ethan had dedicated 14 years to Marine Corps intelligence, specializing in counterinsurgency with a notable gift for extracting and analyzing information. His capacity for assembling seemingly random bits of data had resulted in his unit dubbing him the Pathfinder. That very same analytical mind was currently assembling the pieces of his wife's ever more questionable actions. On his previous leave, 6 months prior, he had detected an unfamiliar scent of cologne in their shared bathroom. Chloe had explained it away as a sample she'd received from a department store. He had discovered receipts from eateries in towns over an hour away, places she had never spoken of visiting. When he inquired, she cited girls' nights with colleagues whose names he had never heard. "You're being paranoid, Ethan," she had told him. "That's the price of spending your life searching for enemies." Maybe she had a point. 14 years hunting insurgents had ingrained suspicion into his very being. Nevertheless, Ethan couldn't dispel the unsettling conviction that something was deeply amiss at home while he was engaged in a conflict on the other side of the world. The objective for that evening was to get information from a man suspected of smuggling weapons in a secluded village. As Ethan donned his gear, his satellite phone vibrated. It was a text from Chloe. "Don't try to call tonight. Taking the kids to my mom's. Signal is terrible there." Her mother's home was in the heart of Richmond, where the cell signal was flawless. It was another falsehood. 3 days later, Ethan intercepted communications that pinpointed the location of a key insurgent commander. The ensuing raid was a complete success, earning Ethan a commendation. While his team celebrated, he slipped away to his bunk and opened the home security application on his tablet, the one Chloe had no idea he had installed before leaving. The camera in their bedroom revealed a man's jacket draped over his own reading chair. At 2:14 a.m. Eastern Time, Chloe appeared in the frame, accompanied by a man Ethan didn't recognize. They were laughing together, sharing wine, his own special vintage, served in the crystal glasses from their wedding. Ethan watched, his face a mask of stone, as the stranger embraced his wife and kissed her. He did not look away as they moved toward the bed, his bed. He recorded it all, his tactical brain already beginning to formulate the most critical intelligence-gathering mission he had ever undertaken. When his commanding officer proposed leave for Ethan after the triumphant mission, he turned it down. "I have preparations to make first, sir," he stated, his voice stripped of all emotion. "The opposition believes it holds the upper hand. I am going to alter that reality." "Are you positive about this, Ethan?" Sam Vance, Ethan's closest friend in the unit and a communications expert, asked with a look of concern as he assisted Ethan in establishing secure communications on his private devices. "I don't make accusations without proof," Ethan stated, verifying the encrypted file transfer. "That's not our procedure." Sam let out a low whistle. The Pathfinder applying his talents to his own household. I never thought I would witness it. Neither did I. Over the subsequent 8 weeks, while carrying out his official responsibilities, Ethan launched a secret investigation into his own life. He gained remote access to their shared bank accounts, mobile phone statements, and the home security recordings. He programmed algorithms to identify patterns, charges for hotels, odd restaurant expenses, periods of time that were unaccounted for. The proof accumulated. The man was Mark Jennings, a representative for a pharmaceutical company who had relocated to their area 11 months earlier, just after the start of Ethan's second deployment. His Facebook profile showed he had rapidly integrated into the local community, volunteering at school events alongside Chloe and joining the same fitness center. Their affair had commenced roughly 7 months ago, which corresponded with Chloe's newfound dedication to fitness and book club gatherings that extended suspiciously into the night. The security cameras showed that Mark had been inside their home on no fewer than 36 occasions. At times, while the children were at school, and other times late in the evening while they were asleep in their rooms upstairs. What unsettled Ethan the most were the recorded conversations about a shared future. Ethan's deployment lasts for another 4 months, Chloe had said, nestled against Mark in Ethan's armchair. When this divorce is over, with his military background, he'll be fortunate to get visitation once a month. The family courts always side with the mother. Are you certain of this? Mark inquired, stroking her arm. Divorcing a decorated Marine won't win you any fans around here. He's no hero in my eyes, Chloe had answered icily. He put the Corps before his family years ago. In any case, we've been careful. He won't find out about us until I decide to tell him. The breaking point was reached when Ethan found text messages detailing Mark's plans to move into the house post-divorce, the very house Ethan had bought using his combat pay and separation. Benefits. What Chloe and Mark were unaware of was that Ethan's security clearance and specialized training granted him access to tools far beyond what a typical civilian could obtain. His intelligence-gathering efforts expanded, and what he unearthed about Mark Jennings sent a chill down his spine. Mark was not simply a pharmaceutical sales rep. His professional history contained discrepancies that Ethan recognized from his counterintelligence training, the signs of a fabricated past. Even more alarming were substantial cash deposits into offshore bank accounts linked to aliases Ethan discovered by accessing military databases. When Ethan finally disclosed the full extent of his discoveries to Sam, his friend's expression turned pale. "This is more than just an affair," Sam said. "This man is using your wife to get to something important." "Not just my wife," Ethan responded quietly. "My children, my home, my entire life." He shut the laptop. "And I have reason to believe he is tied to the very same networks we are currently tracking over here." "My God!" "Ethan, that would imply. It would imply that this isn't merely about an unfaithful wife. This has become a matter of national security." Ethan put in a request for emergency leave 2 weeks ahead of his planned return, stating a family emergency. In a way, it wasn't a fabrication. "Colt, you have 30 days, Colonel Hayes told him. "However, considering what you've disclosed about possible domestic security threats, I'm granting you continued access to specific resources. This will remain unofficial." "Is that clear?" "Sir, thank you." "And Ethan," the colonel continued, his tone softening slightly, "regardless of your wife's level of involvement, whether she was willing or unaware, remember your training. Collect facts, confirm them, and then take action. Do not allow your emotions to compromise your judgment." Ethan's plane touched down at Dulles International at 3:42 p.m. on a wet Tuesday. He did not call Chloe. Instead, he rented a room at a motel 20 miles from his home and set up his base of operations. The following 48 hours were dedicated to physical surveillance, planning more listening devices, and liaising with trusted contacts in the military. His findings confirmed his deepest anxieties. Mark Jennings was, in fact, Viktor Orlov, a mid-tier operative for a global syndicate that specialized in the theft of military intelligence. His method was straightforward but highly effective. Pinpoint military members with top-level security clearances, investigate their family dynamics, and then focus on susceptible spouses during deployments. Ethan was not the first. 3 other servicemen had been targeted in a similar fashion over the last 5 years, with each case culminating in a divorce where the operative stayed in a relationship with the ex-wife to remain close to the children who might unknowingly disclose information they heard from their fathers. On the 3rd day, Ethan finally returned home, scheduling his arrival for a time when school records showed the children would be present, but Chloe would still be at her part-time office job. Leo answered the door, his eyes widening in astonishment before he threw himself into his father's arms. "Dad, you're back early." "Surprise. My deployment got changed," Ethan lied effortlessly, holding his son in a tight hug. "Where's your sister?" "Daddy!" Mia came racing down the staircase, her embrace so forceful it nearly knocked Ethan over. Her eyes were shiny with tears. "I missed you so much." For a brief period, Ethan let himself just be a father reuniting with his kids. They spoke over one another in their excitement, presenting him with schoolwork and sharing stories as he prepared snacks for them in the kitchen, a kitchen where he had watched Chloe and Mark make romantic meals on the security camera. "Hey, have you met Mom's friend, Mr. Mark?" Leo asked with innocence. "He visits a lot. He's showing me how to pitch a curveball." Ethan's smile remained fixed with military precision. "Is that so? What other things does Mr. Mark do when he's here?" The children's guileless responses corroborated everything. Mark had been methodically cultivating relationships with them, posing casual inquiries about Ethan's job, his deployments, and even the security measures he had installed. "Daddy, are you okay?" Mia asked, sensing his expression had become stern. Ethan forced his face to soften. "Just weary from the long flight, sweetheart." He glanced at his watch. "Listen, I've got a surprise for you. What do you say we go for ice cream before Mom gets home? I want to hear everything about your school." He treated the children to ice cream, followed by a movie, making sure to document their outing with photos and videos. Upon their return home, Chloe's car was in the driveway next to an unfamiliar Audi. "Whose car is that?" Ethan asked nonchalantly. "That's Mr. Mark's," Mia replied. "He must be helping Mom with the leaky shower again." Ethan's jaw clenched for a moment before he consciously relaxed it. "Why don't you two go play in the backyard for a bit? I want to surprise your mom." He moved through his house with silence, his years of tactical expertise apparent in his fluid motions. He heard them before he laid eyes on them, Chloe's laughter coming from the kitchen, a man's low, murmuring reply. Ethan began recording on his phone as he neared them. "The separation agreement seems solid," Mark was saying. "As soon as it's filed, we'll push for full custody," citing his extended absences and the psychological toll of his profession. The military avoids fighting these situations. It's bad for their image. "And the house?" Chloe inquired. "As long as we demonstrate that you need it for the children's stability, it's almost a certainty. Military family courts are quite predictable." Ethan appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Is that a fact?" The expression of pure shock on Chloe's face would have brought him satisfaction if the circumstances hadn't been so dire. Mark composed himself more swiftly, offering a hand with a well-practiced smile. "You must be Ethan. I've heard so much about you, Mark Jennings." Ethan did not take the offered hand. "That's interesting. I've heard a fair amount about you as well." "Victor." Mark's smile wavered for a fraction of a second, but it was long enough for Ethan to know he had struck a nerve. "Ethan, why didn't you let me know you were coming?" Chloe stammered. "Mark is just a friend who's been lending a hand with repairs while you've been away." "Is that what you're calling it?" Ethan's voice stayed unnervingly composed. "The children are in the backyard. We will have a civil discussion in their presence. Afterward, I am taking them out for dinner, and by the time we get back, I expect both of you to be gone." "This is my house," Chloe declared in protest. "Technically, it is our house," Ethan corrected her, "and I possess a significant amount of evidence that would be of great interest to both military intelligence and the FBI concerning your friend's activities." "You're disoriented, soldier. Jet lag will do that. 3 deployments, 14 years of service, and specialized intelligence training can also have interesting effects," Ethan retorted calmly. "Like teaching one to recognize patterns, trace financial trails, and connect the dots." He turned to Chloe. "File for divorce if you wish. That is your prerogative. But you need to understand what you've become entangled in before you proceed any further." "Are you making threats against me?" Chloe demanded. "No, I'm providing you with information. What you choose to do with it is up to you." Ethan walked to the back door. "Kids, let's go get dinner at Freddy's." As he departed with the children, Ethan dispatched a pre-written message to Colonel Hayes. Confirmation on Orlov. Advancing to Phase 2. The weeks that followed played out like a strategic game. 2 days after his return, Ethan was served with divorce papers that cited irreconcilable differences. Chloe's lawyer, Jessica Thorne, a ruthless divorce attorney known for preying on military service members, demanded the family residence full custody of the children and 70% of Ethan's military retirement pay. Ethan retained Robert Chen, a former JAG Corps officer who specialized in defending the rights of service members. After examining Ethan's evidence, Robert's experienced face creased with worry. "This is far more than a standard divorce case," he stated in his office. "If your information about Mark Jennings is correct, your wife could be unwittingly mixed up in espionage." "I believe she is unwitting," Ethan conceded. "Manipulated for sure, but legally involved, that's what I need to find out. And this evidence you've collected, some of it might not be admissible in family court because of the way you got it. I know. That's why we need to operate on 2 fronts, one for the family court and another for a federal investigation." Robert leaned back in his chair. "You want to lure them out? Use the divorce case as bait?" "Precisely. They think I'm just another desperate husband trying to keep his kids. Let them believe that while we construct the real case against them, The first hearing was set for September 15th. In the month leading up to it, Ethan moved into a small apartment, but asserted his legal right to equal time with his children. The kids were bewildered and distressed by the abrupt changes, particularly when Chloe started letting Mark stay over. "Why does Mom let Mr. Mark have sleepovers when you can't live with us anymore?" Leo asked during a weekend stay. "Sometimes adults have to make complicated choices," Ethan replied with care. "But I need you to know that none of this is your fault, and I am going to make sure you are both always protected." In his time alone, Ethan pursued his investigation with Colonel Hayes' unofficial endorsement. He worked with a small team of military intelligence experts who helped monitor Mark's activities and communications. Their findings were alarming. Mark had targeted 3 other military families before the Coles, employing the same strategy each time. "He targets families where the service member has access to classified information," explained Captain Diaz, a cybersecurity expert who was assisting Ethan off the books. "He gets close to the spouse, orchestrates a divorce, and then stays in the picture as a stepfather figure to maintain access to the children. Kids talk, especially to adults they trust. They repeat what they hear, show things they found." "It's a devious method, and a successful one," Ethan added grimly. "Have we found his handler yet?" "We're on it. We've traced communications to a shell corporation in Delaware that we think is a front. But here's something you should see. Large amounts of money are being moved into accounts that your wife can access." "Let me see." The financial investigation showed that Chloe had recently opened a private bank account where substantial funds were being deposited, funds that matched the timing of Ethan's deployment schedules and his security clearance upgrades. The pattern strongly suggested she was being paid for specific intelligence achievements. "She's not just being manipulated," Ethan concluded. "She's being compensated." This betrayal cut him more deeply than the affair. Ethan had devoted his life to defending his nation, only to find that the enemy had been sharing his bed, helping raise his children, and all the while selling any information they could glean from his home, his personal belongings, and potentially from his children's innocent chatter. When Ethan confronted Chloe about the money during a custody handover, her response confirmed his worst fears. "Are you spying on my personal bank accounts?" she hissed, casting a nervous glance towards Mark, who was waiting in the car. "That's against the law." "Is it more or less illegal than taking money from foreign operatives in exchange for access to military intelligence?" Ethan asked in a low voice. "Because that's what the proof suggests, Chloe." "You're crazy!" she snapped, but her voice was shaking. "Mark is a pharmaceutical rep. The money comes from investments he's helping me with." "Investments that just happen to align with my deployment schedules and clearance level changes?" Ethan leaned in closer. "Think very carefully about what you're mixed up in. Do it for the children, if not for yourself." For a fleeting second, a look of doubt crossed Chloe's face. Then Mark sounded the car horn, and her expression hardened once more. "The judge is going to hear all about your paranoid behavior and illegal surveillance," she said. "Enjoy your visitation time while you still have it." As the September 15th court date neared, the legal conflict grew more intense. Jessica Thorne filed emergency petitions claiming Ethan was unstable and potentially a danger due to PTSD, a diagnosis he had never received. The court mandated psychological evaluations for both parents. Simultaneously, the separate federal investigation gained momentum as Ethan's military sources uncovered links between Mark Jennings, Victor Orlov, and established foreign intelligence organizations. The evidence was piling up, but they needed to catch him in the act of receiving or sending classified data. 3 days before the custody hearing, Ethan got an encrypted communication from Colonel Hayes. "Handler identified. Moving to secure. Maintain cover until we confirm." That night, as Ethan was making dinner for the children during his parenting time, Leo asked a question that made his blood run cold. "Dad, is it wrong that I told Mr. Mark about your special computer when he asked where you keep your work things?" Ethan kept his voice steady. "What exactly did you tell him, buddy?" "Just that you have a locked cabinet in your office where you keep your secure laptop when you're home from deployment. He said he wanted to get you a surprise gift." "That's not wrong at all. You didn't do anything bad." But inside, his tactical mind was in overdrive. The locked cabinet held his secure laptop, which required biometric access, something Mark couldn't easily bypass. But the attempt showed they were becoming desperate. That night, after taking the children back to Chloe's, Ethan called Robert. "We have to speed things up. They are now making direct attempts to get into classified systems." The hearing is in 3 days, Robert reminded him. We need Judge Ramsey to see the whole situation. Not the whole situation, Ethan corrected. Just enough to keep the children safe while we set the trap. I've prepared something for the court. Something that will change the entire game. The family courthouse was a hive of activity on the morning of September 15th. Ethan was there early, wearing his formal military uniform, his service medals prominently displayed, a calculated move that his lawyer had advised against. They will claim you're trying to manipulate the court, Robert had cautioned. I am not going to hide who I am or the sacrifices I've made, Ethan had retorted. Let them try to discredit my service record. Chloe showed up with Mark and her lawyer, projecting confidence in an expensive suit Ethan didn't recognize. The juxtaposition was stark. Ethan in his uniform, a symbol of duty and sacrifice, Chloe and Mark in their designer attire, representing a new life founded on deceit. Jessica Thorne immediately took issue with Ethan's uniform. Your Honor, Sergeant Cole is blatantly trying to sway the court with this display of military pageantry. Judge Eleanor Ramsey, a formidable woman in her 60s known for her impartiality, looked down from her glasses. Miss Thorne, service members are permitted to wear their uniforms in court. Your objection is overruled. The initial part of the hearing went as expected. Chloe's lawyer portrayed Ethan as a neglectful father, whose hazardous job and numerous deployments rendered him unfit for substantial custody. She highlighted Ethan's paranoid tendencies since his return, which included stalking Chloe and Mark and making baseless accusations. Mrs. Cole has been the primary caregiver for these children their entire lives, while Sergeant Cole repeatedly chose to deploy overseas, Jessica argued. He now comes back and expects to upend the stable home she has built. Moreover, his bizarre allegations against Mr. Jennings, a well-respected pharmaceutical representative who has been a positive force in these children's lives, prove his instability. When it was Robert's turn, he adopted a strategy different from what Ethan had anticipated. Your Honor, my client has indeed served 3 tours in combat, defending the very liberties that permit us to gather in this courtroom. During those deployments, he consistently supported his family both financially and emotionally to the best of his ability from thousands of miles away. What he did not anticipate was returning to find his wife had not only broken their marital vows, but had also potentially jeopardized national security. Jessica Thorne was on her feet instantly. These baseless and inflammatory accusations have no relevance in a custody hearing. I'm inclined to agree, Counselor, Judge Ramsey said to Robert. Unless you possess evidence that pertains to the well-being of these children, I recommend you stick to the factors of custody. The evidence is directly pertinent to the children's welfare, Your Honor, Robert answered calmly. Because Mr. Jennings, whom Mrs. Cole is asking to be allowed to move into the family home with the children, is not the person he purports to be. A murmur went through the courtroom as Robert presented evidence that showed inconsistencies in Mark's identity and work history. He was careful to avoid any mention of the classified intelligence Ethan had obtained, focusing instead on public records and legally acquired information that cast serious doubt on Mark's character and motives. Chloe looked progressively more agitated, whispering urgently to her lawyer, while Mark kept a practiced, condescending smile on his face. When Jessica cross-examined Ethan, she launched an attack. Sergeant Cole, is it not true that you placed surveillance devices in the family home without your wife's awareness or permission? I installed a security system that included cameras in the common areas before my 3rd deployment, Ethan answered. Honestly, for the safety of my family. My wife was aware of the system. And did you employ this system to spy on her? I used it to ensure the security of my home and family while I was deployed in service to my country. Please give a direct answer to the question, Sergeant. I reviewed the security footage when I became concerned about unauthorized individuals gaining access to my home. That is the purpose of a security system. Jessica shifted her approach. Is it not true that your PTSD and combat history have made you paranoid and inclined to perceive threats where there are none? I have never been diagnosed with PTSD, Ethan stated with firmness, and my training in threat identification is, in fact, quite relevant in this situation. Relevant in what way? Do you consider your wife a threat, Sergeant? Ethan looked straight at Chloe. I consider anyone who puts my children's safety at risk to be a threat, Counselor. The morning's testimony wrapped up with character witnesses for both sides. Ethan's commanding officers spoke to his integrity and commitment, while Chloe brought forth neighbors and school staff who testified to her deep involvement in her children's lives. Following a lunch break, Judge Ramsey addressed both parties. I have examined the preliminary evidence and testimony. While I find Sergeant Cole's worries about Mr. Jennings to be concerning, I am not seeing adequate evidence that would influence a custody decision at this point. She looked at Chloe. Mrs. Cole, the court recognizes your role as the primary caregiver, but also respects Sergeant Cole's right to a significant relationship with his children, despite his military commitments. To Ethan, Sergeant, your service is commendable, but this court's priority must be the children's need for stability. The judge's initial remarks indicated she was leaning towards awarding Chloe primary physical custody with generous visitation for Ethan, exactly what Chloe and Mark desired, and precisely what Ethan had foreseen. Before I issue my final ruling, Judge Ramsey went on, does either party have anything further they wish to add? This was the opportunity Ethan had been waiting for. He looked at Robert, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. Your Honor, Ethan said, rising to his feet, I have a single document that I would like to submit to the court. He went to the bench with one sheet of paper, the result of months of intelligence gathering, confirmed by military intelligence and the FBI. The document held no classified data, only the findings of their inquiry into Mark Jennings' Victor Orloff, including his ties to foreign intelligence agencies and the financial trail that connected him to Chloe. Judge Ramsey's eyes widened as she read. She looked from Ethan to Mark and Chloe, her expression shifting from judicial composure to one of alarm. No one is to move, she commanded forcefully. Bailiff, lock the doors and secure this courtroom at once. Mark abruptly stood up. This is absurd. I'm not a party to these proceedings. Sir, you will sit down immediately, the judge ordered. Chloe turned to Mark, confused. What is going on? What did he give her? The courtroom doors swung open to admit 4 military police officers in full combat gear, along with 2 FBI agents in business suits. Victor Orloff, the lead FBI agent announced, you are under arrest for espionage against the United States and for acting as an unregistered agent of a foreign power. Chloe's lawyer let her papers fall in astonishment as the MPs advanced purposefully toward Mark, who desperately searched for an escape. Finding none, he made a move toward Chloe. Tell them it's a mistake. Tell them. 2 MPs cut him off before he could get to her, restraining him swiftly and efficiently while the FBI agents informed him of his rights. Chloe was frozen, her face pale as the gravity of her circumstances began to sink in. Mrs. Cole, said the second FBI agent, coming toward her, we will need you to accompany us as well for questioning about your involvement in this case. I don't understand, Chloe whispered, looking at Ethan with desperation. What is happening? Ethan met her gaze with a steady look. This is the result of choices, Chloe, both yours and mine. Judge Ramsey struck her gavel. This custody hearing is hereby suspended until the conclusion of this federal investigation. Sergeant Cole, in light of these exceptional circumstances, I am awarding you emergency temporary custody of the children. We will reconvene when this situation is resolved. As the MPs escorted Mark out, he made eye contact with Ethan one last time. The facade of Mark Jennings had crumbled entirely, exposing the cold, calculating nature of Victor Orloff. In that instant, Ethan understood what his children had been exposed to, a predator who had used them as pawns in a high-stakes game. Outside the courtroom, Colonel Hayes was waiting. A clean operation, Cole. Thank you for your assistance, sir. The children? They're safe at school. I'll be picking them up myself. The colonel gave a nod. This isn't finished. His network is vast. The children will require protection until we have dismantled the entire cell. Understood, sir. Ethan stood tall, every bit the Marine. I will defend what is mine. The fallout from the courtroom drama escalated quickly. Mark's arrest became a national story. Foreign operative apprehended in military espionage plot. News vans set up camp outside the Cole residence, compelling Ethan to move with the children to a secure military base for a time. Chloe was not arrested on that day, but was brought in for intensive questioning. The FBI's investigation uncovered that she had received more than $200,000 in payments disguised as consulting fees and investment profits, all of which coincided with key dates in Ethan's deployment cycle and security clearance advancements. 2 weeks following the courtroom showdown, Ethan met with FBI Special Agent Kate Miller to go over the findings. We have reason to believe your wife was a knowledgeable participant, Sergeant Cole, Miller stated, presenting him with transaction documents. The timing of the payments is too closely aligned with your military assignments to be a coincidence. However, we do not believe she grasped the full extent of Orlov's operation. Which means? Which means she likely was aware she was being paid to give him access to your personal items, your schedule, and details about your work. She probably rationalized it as corporate espionage, not as an act of treason. Miller closed the file. She is cooperating with us now, asserting that Orlov manipulated her. This may lead to reduced charges, but she is still facing substantial federal prison time. Ethan took in this information with the composed air that had become his signature. Inside, however, he was grappling with a storm of conflicting feelings. The betrayal was complete, not just of their marriage, but of everything he represented. The children were heartbroken. Explaining their mother's absence involved agonizing discussions that no parent should ever have to conduct. "Is Mom a bad person?" Mia asked one evening, her small voice trembling. Ethan selected his words with great care. "Your mother made some very poor decisions that have hurt a lot of people, but she still loves you very much." "But she helped a bad man," Leo said, with the black and white moral clarity of a young person. "Mark was trying to harm you and other soldiers." "People are complex, son. They can make terrible mistakes without being terrible people." Even as he uttered the words, Ethan was no longer certain he believed them. The divorce case continued with Chloe in a severely compromised state. Her lawyer stepped down from the case, not wanting to be connected to an espionage scandal. Her parents, shattered by their daughter's conduct, still supported her, engaging a new lawyer who specialized in both criminal defense and family law. At the newly scheduled hearing, Chloe appeared in prison-issued clothing, having been refused bail due to being a flight risk. The confident, well-dressed woman who had demanded the house in sole custody was gone. In her place sat a hollow-eyed defendant who was facing not only divorce, but also federal criminal charges. Judge Ramsey, who had managed the initial hearing, stepped aside as she was now a witness in the federal case. The new judge, Marcus Shaw, looked at the case with a fresh perspective. "These are highly unusual circumstances," he observed in his opening remarks. "The court must distinguish the criminal charges from the custody matters while recognizing their unavoidable connection." Chloe's new lawyer, Martin Greenberg, contended that despite her legal issues, Chloe should be allowed to have a relationship with her children. "Your Honor, Mrs. Cole has made serious errors in judgment, but her affection for her children is sincere. We request the court to consider supervised visits while her criminal case is ongoing." Robert Chen countered with proof of Chloe's readiness to use the children to get information about Ethan's work. "The evidence shows Mrs. Cole specifically encouraged the children to watch their father's work routines and report back to her and Mr. Orlov. She put her children in the precarious position of being unwitting intelligence sources. This shows a profound failure to ensure their safety." The most conclusive evidence came from Leo himself, who gave his testimony via a closed-circuit television to prevent more trauma. "Mom would give me special treats if I told her about Dad's work things," he said nervously. "She said it was like a game to see what I could recall about Dad's computer and the phone calls he took." Mia's therapist testified that the young girl was now dealing with anxiety and attachment problems that stemmed from the sudden disappearance of her mother and the discovery that Mr. Mark had been using her to hurt her father. Judge Shaw's decision was clear. Ethan was granted full legal and physical custody, with Chloe allowed monthly supervised visits only after she had undergone a psychological evaluation and completed parenting courses. The family home was given to Ethan, along with the majority of their shared assets. Chloe, burdened with legal fees and potential financial restitution, was left with only her personal effects and a minor share of their savings that could not be linked to the illicit payments. As for Mark Victor, he was confronted with multiple federal charges that could result in life imprisonment. The intelligence network that Ethan had helped expose led to 15 more arrests in 3 different states, dismantling a significant foreign intelligence operation that had been targeting military personnel for almost a decade. 6 weeks after the arrests, Ethan was called to a classified meeting at the Pentagon. Colonel Hayes and several high-ranking intelligence officers expressed their gratitude for his service and the personal sacrifices he had made in the name of national security. "Your actions have saved numerous lives and safeguarded critical military intelligence," stated General Pierce, Director of Defense Intelligence. "The nation owes you a debt that can never be fully repaid." "I was simply doing my duty, sir," Ethan responded, "protecting what is important." "We would like you to continue that service," the general said. "Your unique experience makes you indispensable to our counterintelligence initiatives. We are offering you a promotion and a role in the newly established Military Family Security Unit. You would be instrumental in identifying and stopping the very kind of operation that targeted your own family. With all due respect, sir, my children require stability at this time. They have lost their mother to a federal prison. They need their father to be present. Understood, Sergeant. That is why this role is non-deployable. It's based right here in Virginia. Standard working hours for the most part. The general pushed a folder across the table. Look over the details. This work would shield other military families from going through what yours has. That evening, Ethan sat on the back porch of the family home, now just his and his children's home, considering the offer. The job would let him continue to serve while being there for Leo and Mia. More significantly, it would lend a sense of purpose to the personal tragedy they had all faced. As he thought about the future, his secure phone buzzed with a message from Agent Miller. Orlov is talking. Says the operation is bigger than we realized. More sleeper agents in military communities. Can you come in tomorrow? Ethan texted back. I'll be there. 0900. Inside the house, he heard Mia laughing at something Leo had said, a sound that had been all too infrequent in recent months. Their ability to bounce back was incredible. Despite everything, they were healing, adjusting, and finding moments of happiness. He would not allow what happened to them to happen to another military family. The nature of the battlefield had changed, but his mission was still the same: to protect what mattered, no matter the cost. 1 year after the courtroom drama, Ethan stood at his kitchen counter looking over school permission slips while the children had breakfast. Their morning schedule had settled into a comfortable groove, lunches made, backpacks organized, a carefully preserved stability that had become their lifeline. Dad, I need you to sign this for the Science Museum field trip, Leo said, pushing a paper across the counter. At 13, he had shot up 2 inches in the last year and had recently enrolled in the junior ROTC program at his school. Got it. Mia, do you have your math homework? Ethan asked, giving the permission form a quick look before signing. Mia, now 10, gave a nod as she finished her cereal. Her therapy sessions had been a great help. Her anxiety attacks had become less frequent, though she still left her door ajar at night and sometimes crept into Ethan's bed after a bad dream. Can we go see Mom this weekend? Leo asked in a low voice, avoiding eye contact with Ethan. Ethan's expression remained neutral, although the question still stirred a complex mix of feelings. She's on the schedule for Saturday at 11 a.m., same as usual. The monthly trips to the Federal Correctional Institution where Chloe was serving her 8-year sentence had become a regular part of their lives, though not one Ethan particularly enjoyed. Chloe had accepted a plea bargain, pleading guilty to lesser charges of failing to register as a foreign agent and wire fraud. In return, she had provided extensive details about Orlov's network. I don't want to go this time, Mia said, looking down into her cereal. That's your decision, sweetheart, Ethan reassured her. You don't ever have to go if you don't feel like it. Leo seemed conflicted. If Mia isn't going, maybe I should stay here with her. I can ask Mrs. Vance to stay with Mia if you still want to go, Ethan proposed, mentioning Sam's wife, who had become a crucial source of support for the family. Before Leo could answer, Ethan's secure phone buzzed, the one dedicated to his new position with the Military Family Security Unit. The message was from Agent Miller. Orlov is requesting a meeting, says he has critical information. He specifically asked for you. Ethan's jaw tightened without him realizing it. He hadn't seen Mark Victor since the day in court, though he had gone through numerous transcripts of his interrogations. The man was serving multiple life sentences in a high-security federal prison, consistently exchanging information for minor comforts. Is everything okay, Dad? Leo asked, sensing the change in his expression. Ethan managed a reassuring smile. Just work stuff. Finish up or you'll be late for the bus. After sending the children off, Ethan drove to the secure building where the MFSU was based. In the year since it had been created, they had uncovered and stopped 3 more foreign intelligence plots targeting military families. Ethan's personal experience gave him an exceptional ability to recognize the warning signs and patterns that others might overlook. Colonel Hayes, now Brigadier General Hayes and the director of the unit, was waiting in the conference room with Agent Miller. He's being flown in from Colorado, Hayes explained. He'll arrive at 1400 hours. He claims to have actionable intelligence on sleeper agents we haven't found yet. Why is he doing this now? Ethan asked. And why me in particular? He says he will only speak to you, Miller shrugged. It could be a legitimate offer, or it could be a psychological tactic. You know his methods. I do, Ethan confirmed grimly. And that's why I don't like this. Hayes leaned forward. You are not required to take this meeting, Cole. You have already sacrificed enough. Ethan thought about refusing. His life had finally found a sense of normalcy. The children were recovering. His work was fulfilling and let him be the present father they needed. Why stir up old pain? But the idea of other families, other children, being targeted by schemes like the one that had ruined his marriage solidified his determination. I'll take the meeting, but it will be on my terms, not his. The secure interrogation room was intentionally stark. A metal table bolted to the floor, 2 chairs, reinforced walls, and constant surveillance. Ethan waited, looking over the file one last time. When the door opened, Victor Orloff, previously known as Mark Jennings, was brought in, shackled and escorted by 2 guards. The year in prison had taken its toll. His once charming smile was gone, replaced by a gaunt sharpness, his designer suit swapped for a prison jumpsuit. Gunnery Sergeant Cole, Orlov greeted him, a slight accent in his voice that had been absent from his Mark Jennings character. Or is it Lieutenant now? I heard you were promoted. Let's dispense with the small talk, Ethan retorted coldly. You asked for this meeting, so talk. Orloff observed him with shrewd eyes. How are the children? Leo must be in middle school by now, and little Mia, still scared of thunderstorms? Ethan's face remained emotionless, though inside his anger flared at Orlov's casual reference to his children. You have lost the right to know anything about my family. This meeting will end now unless you provide us with actionable intelligence. Orlov gave a thin smile. Always the consummate professional. That's why they never realized you were on to them. He leaned forward, his voice dropping. There is an operation in Norfolk, Naval Intelligence. 3 operatives currently in place, targeting the Harrison family. Lieutenant Commander in Submarine Systems. Ethan took notes without letting on whether he considered the information significant. Give me names. That would be too simple. Orlov's eyes had a familiar manipulative glint. I want something in exchange. You are not in a position to bargain. I am in the perfect position to bargain. I offer intelligence, I get considerations. That is how this game is played. What do you want? Ethan asked, though he already knew what the answer would be. I want to have contact with Chloe. Ethan's pen stopped moving for a moment on the page. That's not going to happen. Just letters. Monitored, censored, whatever security measures you think are necessary. Orlov leaned back. We were in love, you know. Not all of it was part of the operation. Spare me the details, Ethan said flatly. You chose her because of my security clearance. The psychological profile confirmed she was susceptible to flattery and material things. Standard operating procedure for your handlers. Is that what you tell yourself? Orlov asked. That she couldn't have genuinely fallen for someone else? That it had to be a manipulation? Ethan saw the attempt at psychological manipulation and refused to take the bait. You have nothing of value. This meeting is concluded. As he got up to leave, Orlov spoke quickly. David Reed, currently working as a sailing coach at the Norfolk Marina. He gives private lessons to Harrison's teenage daughters. A background check will show you some inconsistencies if you know what to look for. Ethan stopped, then returned to his seat. Continue. For the next hour, Orlov gave detailed information about the Norfolk operation and 2 others, one in San Diego and one in Pensacola. The intelligence was precise, verifiable, and potentially very valuable. Why are you giving this up now? Ethan finally asked. Orlov shrugged. My former employers tried to have me eliminated last month, an ambush during a prison transfer. It failed, obviously, but the message was received. My usefulness to them is over. So my allegiances have shifted. And the letters to Chloe? We had something real, no matter what you may believe. Orlov's eyes held a flicker of what looked like genuine emotion. She deserves to know that I haven't forgotten her. I will verify this intelligence. If it checks out, I will recommend that your request be considered. But I am making no promises. As Ethan started to leave, Orlov called out to him. She never stopped loving you, you know, even when she was with me. She talked about you. The hero, the dedicated soldier. She just couldn't bear the loneliness anymore. Ethan paused at the door, then left without a word. He would not give Orlov the satisfaction of a reaction. Later that evening, after a preliminary check confirmed that Orlov's intelligence was credible, Ethan sat on his back porch, watching Leo and Mia play with the neighbor's dog in the yard. Miller had called to tell him that David Reed had been put under surveillance, and evidence was already surfacing that supported Orlov's claims. We'll need you in Norfolk tomorrow, she had said. The Harrison daughters have lessons scheduled with Reed. I'll be there, Ethan had responded, after I drop the kids at school. Now, watching his children's innocent game, Ethan considered Orlov's request. The idea of that man being in communication with Chloe was repulsive to him. Yet to deny valuable intelligence because of a personal grudge was not who Ethan was, or who he wanted to be. His phone buzzed with a text from Chloe's prison account, the monitored system that allowed for limited communication about the children. Leo mentioned he might not come on Saturday. Is everything okay? Ethan looked at the message, remembering the woman he had married, the mother of his children, before Orlov and his handlers had identified and exploited her weaknesses, the woman who, according to her psychological evaluation, he had convinced herself the information she was providing wasn't truly dangerous, just corporate competition. He typed out a reply. He's feeling conflicted. It's his decision. Mia is definitely not coming this month. The response came back quickly. I understand. Thank you for not turning them completely against me. You could have. Ethan did not reply. The reality was far more complex than Chloe would ever grasp. He had never tried to turn the children against her, despite the pain she had inflicted. Not because he had forgiven her, he hadn't, and he doubted he ever would, but because the children needed to work through their own feelings without his influence. Dad, come play, Mia called from the yard, waving her arms excitedly. Ethan put his phone in his pocket and went to join his children, pushing thoughts of Orlov, Chloe, and national security to the back of his mind for a few precious hours. Tomorrow would bring new threats to neutralize, but tonight was for Leo and Mia. 2 years after the courtroom bombshell, life had adopted what Ethan's therapist referred to as the new normal. The children were excelling in school, the nightmares had mostly stopped, and Ethan's role with the MFSU had grown to include leading training sessions for military families, teaching them how to spot and prevent targeting by foreign operatives. Chloe had completed 3 years of her 8-year sentence, with the possibility of early release for her ongoing cooperation. Her monthly visits with the children had become less tense, though Ethan still kept his distance, arranging things through prison staff, and occasionally Mrs. Vance, who would drive the children when Ethan's work took him out of town. The Norfolk operation that Orlov had exposed resulted in 5 arrests and prevented major intelligence leaks. The subsequent information he provided was equally useful, which led to the reluctant granting of his request for monitored correspondence with Chloe. Ethan had been notified, but not involved in this decision, a choice he accepted with professionalism, even though he personally found it unsettling. On a cool October morning, Ethan was reviewing safety protocols for an upcoming military family event when his secure phone rang. It was Miller, and her voice was strained. We need you at headquarters right away. There's a problem with Orlov. What kind of problem? The kind that's better discussed in person. It involves Chloe and the children. A chill went through Ethan. I'm on my way. At headquarters, he found not only Miller, but also General Hayes, the warden from Chloe's prison, and 2 FBI cybersecurity experts. What has happened? Ethan demanded. Miller gestured to one of the specialists, who brought up a series of messages on the main screen. These are the supposedly approved monitored letters between Orlov and your ex-wife from the past 8 months. Ethan looked them over. They seemed to be innocent reminiscences, expressions of regret, and discussions about books and prison life. Nothing obviously alarming. And these, the specialist went on, displaying another set, are the real communications we just uncovered. They've been corresponding through a sophisticated hidden channel embedded in the approved letters. The decrypted messages showed something much more disturbing. Orlov and Chloe had been using a complex code to communicate, discussing not only their personal relationship, but also Ethan's current job, his schedule, and, most worrisomely, details about the children. How is this possible? Ethan asked, fighting to keep his composure. Every single communication is supposed to be reviewed. The warden looked extremely uncomfortable. The coding system was incredibly advanced. They used steganographic methods embedded in seemingly harmless phrases, triggered by specific word combinations. Our standard screening procedures didn't catch it. We only found it because of a new AI pattern recognition system we recently put in place. Orlov was highly intelligent. He was trained, Miller added. And it seems he taught Chloe the coding system through the approved letters, building it up gradually, right under our noses. Ethan's attention focused on a specific decoded message from Chloe. Leo mentioned E's new girlfriend works in the nuclear program. Need her name and clearance level. She's been using the visits to get information from the children. Ethan realized, his voice dangerously low. About me, about my work. No one argued with him. The evidence was undeniable. General Hayes cleared his throat. We are cutting off all communication privileges for both of them. Effective immediately. Chloe is being moved to a higher security prison with no contact rules except for her legal counsel. Orlov is losing all the privileges he gained through his cooperation. And the children? Ethan asked. That's part of the reason we brought you here, Miller said softly. The content of the messages suggests that Chloe has been systematically questioning them during her visits, especially Leo, about your personal life and work details. Given your position, this creates a significant potential for a security breach. The full weight of the situation hit Ethan like a physical force. The monthly visits he had allowed, thinking they were important for the children's emotional well-being, had been turned into a weapon. Chloe hadn't changed at all. She had just found a new method. We need to interview the children, one of the FBI agents said. We have to determine exactly what information might have been compromised. No, Ethan stated with firmness. They have been through enough trauma. I will handle this. Cole, General Hayes started. Protocol dictates. With all due respect, sir, these are my children. I know how to talk to them without causing more harm. I have been trained in these methods, and I know exactly what information we need to evaluate the breach. After some debate, they reached a compromise. Ethan would have an initial talk with the children, which would be recorded for security reasons, with a child psychologist present. Based on what was learned, they would decide if a further investigation was necessary. That evening, Ethan sat at the kitchen table with Leo, now 14, and Mia, 11. He had picked them up from their after-school programs early, knowing this conversation could not be put off. I need to ask you both some very important questions about your visits with your mom, he started carefully. You are not in trouble, and your mom is not in trouble. We just need to understand some things. Leo's expression immediately became wary. What kind of things? During your visits, does your mom ask you questions about me? About my job, or the people I know? The siblings exchanged a quick look that confirmed Ethan's fears before either of them spoke. Sometimes, Mia confessed. She asks if you're happy, if you're seeing anyone. Just normal mom stuff. Does she ask about specific people, or about my work? Leo looked down at the table. She asked about Sarah a lot. She wanted to know what she does at the base. I just told her she works with computers because that's all I know. Sarah Evans was a cybersecurity expert at the MFSU, whom Ethan had been seeing for about 6 months. Her job involved classified nuclear defense projects. What else, Leo? Ethan prompted gently. She asked if I ever see any of your work documents or hear your phone conversations. Leo looked up, guilt clear on his face. I told her about the safe in your office. I didn't think it was a big deal, just Mom being curious. Ethan maintained his calm demeanor despite the sinking feeling in his gut. Did she ever ask you to look for something specific, or to tell her about my schedule? Mia spoke up. She always wants to know when you're traveling. She says it's so she won't schedule calls when you're gone, but she writes it down every time. The conversation went on, revealing a systematic pattern of intelligence collection disguised as motherly concern. Both children had unknowingly given out information that, while seeming harmless on its own, could be put together to create a disturbing picture of Ethan's work, his travels, and his relationships. When they were done talking, Ethan had to face the hardest part. I need to tell you something very difficult. Your mom has been sharing this information with Mark. What? How? Leo demanded, his voice cracking. He's in prison. They've been writing letters, and we've discovered they were hiding secret messages in those letters. Mia's eyes welled up with tears. But why? Mom said she was sorry about all of that. She said Mark had tricked her. Ethan chose his next words with great care. Sometimes people make decisions that are hard for us to comprehend. Your mom might still be confused about what is right and wrong when it comes to Mark. So we can't visit her anymore? Leo concluded, his expression hardening into one that painfully reminded Ethan of himself. Not for now. She is being moved to a different prison. Once that is all sorted out, we will have to make some decisions as a family. Mia started to cry openly. I don't want to see her anyway. She's still a liar. Ethan pulled his daughter into his arms, holding her as she sobbed. Over her head, he met Leo's eyes, no longer the eyes of a child, but those of a young man facing adult betrayals for the second time in his short life. I'm sorry, Ethan said simply. You both deserved better. Later that night, after the children were in bed, Ethan sat in his home office reviewing the security footage of their conversation. The recording would be sent to the FBI and military intelligence to assess the potential security breach. His secure phone buzzed with a message from Miller. Chloe requesting an emergency call with you regarding the children. It is advisable to refuse. Ethan stared at the message for a long time. She had betrayed not just him, not just her country, but now her own children. Twice. Using them as unwitting sources of intelligence, manipulating their love and trust. He typed his reply. Understood. No contact authorized except through my attorney. As he put the phone down, he saw a school paper on Leo's desk, an essay titled, Heroes in Our Lives. He picked it up and read the first paragraph. My father is a hero, but not just because he serves our country in the military. He's a hero because he protects people, even when it's hard, even when it hurts him. When everything fell apart with my mom, he made sure we knew it wasn't our fault. He built us a new life where we could feel safe again. That's what real heroes do. Ethan carefully put the paper back, a complex mix of emotions washing over him. Pride in his son's resilience, grief for the family he had lost, and a fierce determination to protect what was left. Tomorrow, he would start the process of seeking to terminate Chloe's parental rights based on her continued criminal activities involving the children. It would be another painful fight, but one he would not hesitate to wage. Some betrayals could not be forgiven, and some risks could not be tolerated. The children had now lost their mother twice, first to her affair with Orlov, and now to her ongoing deception. Ethan couldn't bring back what was gone, but he could make sure they would never be used as weapons again. 5 years after the courtroom revelation, Ethan stood in his dress uniform, watching Leo graduate from high school. Now, 18, his son had grown into a young man of impressive character, academically gifted, physically disciplined, and possessed of a quiet strength that reminded Ethan of his own father. Beside him sat Mia, 16, recording the ceremony on her phone. She'd overcome her earlier trauma through years of therapy and had blossomed into a confident young woman with a passion for cybersecurity. Inspired, she said, by watching her father's work protecting military families. And now, announced the principal, our valedictorian, Maxwell Cole. Ethan swelled with pride as Leo approached the podium. Neither child bore their mother's surname anymore, a legal change finalized 3 years earlier when Chloe's parental rights were terminated following her conviction on additional charges of attempted espionage. My journey to this podium hasn't been a traditional one, Leo began, his voice steady and mature. Many of you know parts of my story, the headlines, the public record, but the most important lessons I've learned came after the cameras left and the news moved on. Ethan listened as his son spoke eloquently about resilience, integrity, and the strength found in rebuilding. Not once did Leo directly mention his mother or the scandal that had destroyed their family, yet his references to learning who you can trust and the foundation of truth spoke volumes. My father taught me that we are defined not by what happens to us, but by how we respond, Leo continued. He showed me that protecting what matters sometimes requires difficult choices, and that true strength lies in doing what's right, not what's easy. After the ceremony, as they celebrated at Leo's favorite restaurant, Ethan's secure phone vibrated with a news alert. Viktor Orlov, convicted spy, found dead in federal custody. Apparent suicide. Ethan silently showed the phone to Sarah, now his wife of 2 years, who raised an eyebrow in response. They both knew enough about intelligence operations to question whether Orlov's former handlers had finally reached him, tying up a loose end that had outlived its usefulness. Everything okay, Dad? Leo asked, noticing the exchange. Nothing concerning us anymore, Ethan replied, putting the phone away. Just work. That evening, as Leo packed for the military academy where he'd begin training in the fall, following his father's footsteps but choosing the Air Force Cybersecurity Division rather than Marine Corps Intelligence, Ethan received another alert. See Cole requesting final communication through counsel, claims critical information regarding O's network. Ethan deleted the message without response. Chloe had made similar claims 3 times in the past 5 years, each time offering fragments of information in exchange for reduced restrictions or visitation rights. Each time, the intelligence proved minimal or outdated, while her motives remained manipulative. The children hadn't seen their mother in over 3 years, since the revelation of her continued intelligence gathering through them. Leo had made a clean break, refusing all contact. Mia had maintained sporadic, supervised written communication until her 16th birthday, when she, too, had decided to end contact. Dad, Mia appeared in his office doorway. Can we talk? Always. Ethan cleared space at his desk where he'd been reviewing Leo's academy paperwork. Mia sat, fidgeting slightly. Mom's lawyer sent me an email. She wants to see me before I start college next year. Says she has important things to tell me that can only be said in person. Ethan kept his expression neutral. What do you think about that? I think she's still trying to manipulate us. Mia's voice held a maturity beyond her years. But part of me wonders if I should hear her out, just to finally close that chapter. That's your decision, Mia. You're old enough to make it for yourself. Ethan chose his next words carefully. But remember, closure doesn't always come from external sources. Sometimes we find it within ourselves. You never got closure with her, did you? I found my own version of it, Ethan answered honestly, by focusing on what I could control, creating a safe home for you and Leo, doing meaningful work, building a life based on truth rather than lies. Do you ever regret how things turned out? Not forgiving her? Ethan considered the question seriously. I've never regretted protecting you and Leo. As for forgiveness, some betrayals go too deep, affect too many innocent people. Your mother didn't just betray me. She betrayed you, Leo, her country, and ultimately herself. And that's unforgivable. For me, yes, but your journey is your own. Forgiveness isn't an obligation. It's a choice each person must make for themselves, based on their own values and boundaries. Mia was quiet for a moment. I think I'll decline the meeting. Not because I can't forgive her, but because I don't believe her motives have changed, and I won't let myself be used again. Ethan felt a profound mixture of sadness and pride, sad that his daughter had to learn such hard lessons so young, proud of the wisdom and strength she'd developed as a result. Later that night, with the children asleep and Sarah reading beside him in bed, Ethan contemplated the journey of the past 5 years. The intelligence network Orlov had been part of had been largely dismantled. The MFSU had expanded to protect military families worldwide. The work continued, as it always would, new threats emerging as old ones faded. Penny for your thoughts, Sarah said, setting aside her book. Just reflecting, Ethan replied. Leo heading to the academy, Mia making her own decisions about Chloe. The fortress stands. Sarah understood the reference. Early in their recovery, Ethan had described his approach to rebuilding their family life as constructing a fortress, not to hide within, but to create a secure foundation from which the children could safely engage with the world. You've given them something remarkable, Ethan. Not just protection, but the tools to protect themselves. We all have, he corrected, including her in the achievement. Sarah had been instrumental in helping the children heal, bringing warmth and stability while respecting the complex emotions surrounding their mother. His phone buzzed once more, the final update he'd been waiting for. The message was brief. C. Coal transfer complete, maximum security, communications blackout implemented per court order. Ethan set the phone aside without comment. Chloe had made her choices, repeatedly. Now she would live with the consequences, permanently isolated from the family she had betrayed and the children she had attempted to exploit. The legal battle to terminate all contact had been brutal, but necessary, with the court ultimately agreeing that her continued manipulation represented an ongoing threat to both the children's well-being and national security. In the morning, Ethan would help Leo load his car for the academy. In the fall, he would see Mia begin her senior year of high school. Their lives would continue to unfold, shaped by, but not defined by, the betrayals of the past. The fortress he had built around his family wasn't comprised of walls, but of truth, transparency, and unwavering principles. Within its boundaries, his children had found not just safety, but the strength to forge their own paths. Outside its protection, those who had chosen deception over loyalty, manipulation over love, would find no quarter, no forgiveness, no return. Some might call him unforgiving. Ethan considered it clarity of purpose. The enemy had breached his home once, using those he loved as weapons against all he stood for. That breach had been sealed, the damage repaired, the lessons learned. Never again.